Hey all, today since my algebra kids are taking their state test, you guys are just going to take some notes over Pythagorean theorem. If you were not here on Friday, Mr. Dehart should have some extra copies. So we are going to be on pages 1 and 2 today. So it looks like this. Okay. So today we're going to learn about the Pythagorean theorem. So we did a little bit of an intro on Friday, but we didn't actually put a word to it. So we just talked about right triangles. So in a right triangle, you have two sides adjacent to the right angle, which are known as your legs. Okay. And then you also have the side opposite of the right angle, which is called the hypotenuse, which again we talked about on Friday. Okay, so again, math people don't really like a lot of words, and so they usually label them a little bit differently. Okay, so for our legs, which are right here and right here, they label them with the letter A and the letter B. So here are my legs, and so I'm going to label them A and B. And technically, it doesn't really matter. You could put the B right there and the A right there. Okay, for the hypotenuse, which is opposite of the right angle, okay, we always actually use the letter C. Okay, so it is always the opposite side of the right angle. Oh, actually, no. It is the longest side, excuse me. Okay, and so then on Friday, we talked about all, kind of played around and came up with this rule. Okay, so it says the Pythagorean theorem tells us how the side lengths of right triangles are related to each other. Okay, so in any right triangle, if you find the area of a hypotenuse, okay, it's always equal to the sum of the squares of the other sides. Okay, more simply stated, the Pythagorean theorem is just a squaring one of the legs plus squaring the other leg, and it will always actually equal the hypotenuse squared. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So to be successful in this, we first just have to know, can we label the legs and can we label the hypotenuses? So what I like to do is just find first the hypotenuse, it's the longest side, or it's the opposite of the right angle. So this is C, and it doesn't really matter which one A and B is as long as C is labeled correctly. Okay, so for this one, this is our hypotenuse. For this one, this is our hypotenuse. And for this one, this is our hypotenuse. Again, our hypotenuse is just our longest side. Okay, so using the Pythagorean theorem, find the missing side length for each triangle. So first, what I always like to ask myself is, am I trying to find a leg or am I trying to find a hypotenuse? Okay, so if I look right here, okay, I do not know what the C value is. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the area of a square, that's a 3 by 3, which is 9. Okay, and then right here, okay, a 4 by 4, which would be 16. Okay, and if I'm trying to find the square of the hypotenuse, I'm actually going to add them together. So 9 plus 16 equals my hypotenuse squared. Okay, then I add those two numbers together and I get 25. Okay, so the area of this square is 25, but I want to know how long the actual side length is. Okay, so we have to either come up with what number times itself equals 25, or what we can do is we can just take the square root. Okay, on your calculator, you would hit the second button, you would hit x squared, and when you do that, the little square root symbol should pop up, and then you type in the number you want to take the square root of. For us, we're going to take square root of 25. We hit enter, and we should get 5. Okay, which means that our hypotenuse is 5 inches long. Okay. All right, for number 2, again, I always ask myself, what are we trying to find? A leg, an A, a B, or a C? Okay, so it looks like I am missing a C value. Okay, so I'm going to square my legs. Okay, so I'm going to do 24 times 24, or 24 squared, and I get 576. Okay, I have another leg, that's 7 times 7, which would be an area of 49. Okay, and again, if I'm trying to find the hypotenuse, I can just add those together. Okay, so I have 576 plus 49, and that equals 625. Okay, and that is my hypotenuse squared. So that is how much area is on the inside. But again, my goal is to figure out how long this is. So I'm going to take the square root of 625. So I hit second, x squared, 625. I hit enter, and I get 25. Okay. So my hypotenuse is 25 centimeters. All right, for this last one, okay, I'm trying to find the C value. Okay, so I'm going to square 12 times 12, which is 144. I'm going to do 7 squared, 7 times 7, which is 49. These are my legs, so I can add them together. So 144 plus 49, which is 193. Okay, and that equals the area of my hypotenuse. Okay, but I need to come up with what just one side length is. So I take the square root of 193. Okay, and I get this really long decimal. Okay, and so it says to round to the nearest tenth. So I'm going to go ahead and just write the numbers I see. You don't have to write this down. I'm just showing you how we round real quick. Okay, so the nearest tenth, okay, means 1 decimal place. So we look to the right of our decimal place, which is a 9, which is going to round it up. Okay, so this would be about 13.9 feet. Okay, so if it's not a perfect number, we will be rounding. All right, go ahead and go to page 2. All right, now with these problems, okay, I have to ask myself what I don't know. When I look, I know that my C value is 13. I'm missing one of my legs. Okay, so I'm going to say this is B. Okay, so I'm going to do the same process. I'm going to find the areas of the squares. So 5 times 5, which is 25. This one I actually know the hypotenuse, so I'm still going to do 13 times 13, which is 169. Okay. But now instead of combining them together, I have to have both my legs add up to the hypotenuse, so I'm actually going to subtract 169 minus 25, and that will equal one of my legs squared. So when I subtract 169 minus 25, I get 144. Again, that is the area of this square, and I'm trying to figure out how long the side is. So to undo that square, you take the square root, and the square root of 144 is 12. So my leg is 12 inches long. All right, for number 5, again, I look and I know my hypotenuse, so I'm trying to figure out what adds to my hypotenuse squared, so I'm going to have to subtract. Okay, so first I'm going to do 10 squared, which is 100. Okay, and then I have a leg, which is 6 times 6, which is 36. Okay, but again, I have to subtract those two because the rule that we figured out on Friday is the legs together make the hypotenuse, and that will equal one of my legs. Again, it doesn't really matter if it's A or B. Okay, so I'm going to do 100 minus 36, and I get 64. And that equals one of my legs squared. Okay, that's the area of it. But I want to figure out what one side is, and the square root of 64 is 8. So this missing side is 8 yards. All right, for this final problem, again, I'm asking myself, am I trying to find a leg or a hypotenuse? Okay, so it looks like I know my hypotenuse, so I'm trying to find a leg. So I'm first going to do the area of the hypotenuse, so 24 squared, or 24 times 24, which is 576. And then I'm going to take out the one leg that I know, which is 16 times 16. 16 times 16 is 256, which is going to equal one of my legs squared, so 576 minus, to find the missing part, 256, which is 320. That's the area of one of my squares. I'm going to take the square root of 320, and I get 17.88854382. So I'm going to round to my nearest tenth, so 17.88. So that extra 8 is going to round that 8 up to a 9. And so my missing leg is 17.9 miles, excuse me. Okay, now we have some real world examples. Okay, a rectangular pool at Andy's gym measures 25 meters by 50 meters. So I'm going to kind of draw it. Okay, so 25 meters by 50 meters. Okay, how many meters would Andy need to swim in order to swim diagonally across the pool? So it's asking if we start in this corner and we swim diagonally, how many feet that is. Okay, well, the cool thing about rectangles is they have right triangles in them. Okay, so it looks like I kind of see a right triangle. Okay, and I have to ask myself, is it asking me to find a hypotenuse or a leg? And it looks like the missing side is the one across the right angle, so I am missing a hypotenuse. So I'm going to do 25 squared, and I'm going to add the other leg of 50 squared, and that should give me my longest side as a square. So I'm going to do 25 squared, which is 625, plus 50 squared, which is 2500. And then I'm going to add those together, which is 3,125. And that is the area or the square of my hypotenuse. But I want to figure out how long one side is, not just the square of it. So I'm going to do the square root of 3,125. And I get 55.901. So this is about 55.9 meters as a on the diagonal. All right. A pole vaulter rested a 17-foot pole against a wall. If the top of the pole hit the wall 14 feet above the ground, how far from the wall is from the bottom of the pole? Okay, so I'm going to draw a pretty picture. Okay, so here's going to be my wall. Okay, and here will be my pole. Okay, so I'll just fill in what we know. We know a pole vaulter rested a 17-foot pole against the wall, so we know that this is 17 feet. Okay, if the top of the pole hit the wall 14 feet above the ground, so we know from the bottom up to the top of the pole is 14 feet. Okay, how far from the wall is the bottom of the pole? So here's the wall and the bottom of the pole. I have no idea what that is. Okay, but I do notice from the wall to the ground, most things are 90-degree angles because they're built correctly. Okay, so it looks like I know the hypotenuse and I'm trying to find a leg. Okay, so I am going to do 17 times 17, and I get 289. Okay. But this is my biggest one, and I have to figure out what adds to 289, so I'm going to subtract out this one. So 14 squared, which is 196, and that will equal one of my square legs. Okay, so 289 minus 196 is 93, and that's the area of it. So I'm going to undo that by taking the square root. Square root of 93 is 9.6436. So we'll say it is about 9.6 feet from the wall to wherever the pole is. Okay. Last couple ones. Okay, what is the area of the largest square? So we're trying to find the area. We're not trying to find a side length. Okay, so it looks like we're trying to find a hypotenuse. So it looks like all we have to do is just add. Okay, this already tells us, with the little square, it tells us that's already the area. So we just have to add 36 and 64, which is 100. Okay, again, it's asking just what the area is. So it's 100 square units. If it were to ask how long the side would be, then we would take the square root and it would be 10 units. But it didn't ask that. All right, number 10, if the area of square 1 is 25 units squared, so I'm going to put 25 right here, and the area of square 2 is 16, what is the perimeter of square 3? Okay, so we already know the squares, so I have to ask myself, am I trying to find a leg or hypotenuse? Looks like I know the hypotenuse, so I'm going to subtract. So 25 minus 16, which is 9. Okay, so that is the area. Okay, it's trying to find the perimeter, which is the sides around. So it looks like I need to find a side length. So I'm going to take the square root of 9. And the square root of 9 is 3. Okay, so that means that each side is 3. And I haven't figured out my answer yet. I'm trying to find perimeter. So perimeter is everything around, so added together. So 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 would be 12 units. All right, so for today, you guys are just going to practice pages 3 and 4, and I'll see you guys hopefully tomorrow.